this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is the third part of dealing with Geoff's plants, those that are going in pots. And obviously this giant cattleya is going in my normal procedure for big cattleyas, which is a holy clay pot with large bark. This will be where the next growth comes from. It's swelling now. There will be new roots from this point. In fact, it's swelling on two sides. Whether it will manage to push up two eyes or not, I doubt, because of the disturbance. There was a lead here and it had rotted, so I've taken that off, and I took a bit of the rhizome off at the back as well. These are huge roots and they're fleshy. I think they're okay despite having a strange colour to them, so they're getting left on. That will prove to be a problem, because obviously I've got to get this in the pot. Let me just get some wire sorted out first. I used to have a nasty habit of forgetting the wire until the plant was in, and it's just too difficult to mess about with after the plant's in. Need to get the wire on first. Let's have a look and see how the plant's going to end up in here. It's going to end up sort of like that. So to hold that upright is probably going to need, this root system's almost too big for this pot, if you know what I mean. And they're slightly bendy. They would snap if pushed too far, but they are bendy. But I want that like that, even though it looks as though it's climbing a bit, simply because I want room for this to stay in the pot for a while. Ideally I should take the back end of the rhizome off, but I'd be losing two plump bulbs and a leaf. That doesn't leave, as a percentage of the plant, 1, 2, 3, 4, leafless, 5, 6. Got 6 bulbs there. To take 2 off is taking a third of the plant off. And one of those is leaved as well, so it's staying there. There is actually an eye there that might shoot out. Where that lead was actually damaged and rotted and taken off, that could trigger a shoot behind that point, which will be good. Anyway, what we're supposed to be doing is sorting out where the wire is going to go, and I reckon if I twist that round like that, I can come across there. So that'll be that hole and that hole. Did I cut a piece off? Yes, I did. I'm going mad here today. Comes a point where if you take on too much, you don't do any of it very well. Does that make sense? You might start off the day really well and everything's going really great. As the day progresses, things don't go so great, and you wish you hadn't started quite so much all in one go, perhaps, which is where I am now. But nonetheless, I wanted this lot done, because who knows, tomorrow I might be bringing some more home. We shall see. Now this is my last large holy clay pot, and this is a one being reused from a plant that was lost. Yeah, so I was watching Todd this morning doing a Blue Peter. That's called do it yourself. It's just an expression. Blue Peter was a children's program many years ago. I don't think, well, it may still be on, I don't know. I don't tend to watch the children's programs anymore, even though they're probably better than some of the adult ones. But basically, they always used to be making things, little crafty things, and they'd get part way through, get themselves in a right mess, or the glue wouldn't stick, or something would go wrong, and then they would magically use the age-old expression, "Here's one we prepared earlier." And even at a young age, I twigged that was just a con. They're trying to show you how to do it, and they stop part way through on the grounds that they failed and made a muck up. So they have to bring out one they prepared earlier. I mean, it's different on a cookery program, because obviously you can't have a TV program waiting 40 minutes for something to cook in the oven. So they have to have one that they cooked earlier. That's fair enough, we can accept that. But with crafty things, just because you've messed it up, or the glue won't stick, or the tape keeps coming undone. But yeah, every program they used to try and make something. which is great. I mean, you know, for kids at home, something to do. But they did used to fail miserably sometimes, well, frequently actually. Right, there should be enough of that underneath now that when I pull on the wire, it's got something to pull the plant down onto. If you try and put the wire on before your media's in there, you just pull the plant down to the bottom of the pot. It serves no purpose. So, God, this bark is huge. Right, let's go. I just heard one root crack, so I don't want to go too mad here. There's my other hole. I'm going to go round in front of that. It's going to put a kink in the wire, but so be it. Come out through there. I mean, I might need a second wire, but I think because I've got a good root system here, it would probably stand upright on its own. But if it's wired, then when I pick it up to water it and wiggle it around, I'm not going to bend it and flop it around, am I? So, got to be worth doing. And then what I do is I use the pot for leverage. So grab hold of the pliers and twist like that. You can see it pulling the wire through the hole. And just check how tight it is. Hold it in place while you move the pliers so that you can do it again if it's not quite tight enough. You can see it pulling the plant now. Yeah, that's what I'm after, is that amount of pressure so that it's got the plant. Twist it so that it can't slip back through, and then you can cut that and put it back over the top. And if you want to pinch a wire a little bit tighter, if it's strong enough, that type of wire, you can just bend it, just push it with your thumb, yeah, and that will tighten it up. So that's firm enough, that's good enough. It's a very, very top heavy plant, very top heavy. That would never stay upright with a stake, because trying to get a stick to go down through that media is impossible. The pieces are so large and strong that the stick breaks. You know, I've tried it. So, right, we're in there. The media is low at the back, but so be it. But what I want to do is, I'll just switch off for a bit. I want to get some smaller bark to put round here, just where the new roots are going to be. So I'll be back when we top that up. I just grabbed a handful out of the bucket. I'm going to possibly need that in a minute anyway. But I just want to get some of the smaller stuff to feed in between these really large pieces where the roots are going to come out. And the main reason is that this small bark will stay wet longer, which will give the roots a bit of extra hydration as they come out from this new growth, which they will. And then of course once they get past this small bark, they're into the big chunky stuff with plenty of air around them, with the holes in the pot and the size of the bark. So that's that one done. I haven't got a tag at the moment, but there was only one plant looking anything like that, so that's one done. Now the other three, the only reason that big bark can stay out here is possibly a bit of crocking. So that's the wire finished with. I'll just have a sort out and then be back and get some pots and things, and then we'll do the others. Okay, we're on to more traditional potting now. I've got an assortment of pots. I've got my sponge rock, giant perlite, I've got some charcoal, I've got some cocoa husk, and I've got some of the Burnham's bark that I came back with from Burnham's when I went. Yeah, so that's what we've got, and I'm going to do these one plant at a time. It's 3 pots, but a lot more than 3 plants. So this is one here that's got virtually no roots. That's not going to stand up on its own in a pot, and I haven't got any stakes. Marvellous. I'll worry about that in a minute. We've got the potential for some root growth here. Highly likely to get some root growth here, the nubbins are there, and some here. But what's happened with this plant is, as the roots have started, they've failed. So this was not happy where it was. However, it's bloomed, and the 2 latest growths here and here both have a sheath. We may get blooms. But to back up these nice big plump pseudobulbs with all their stored energy, which could push up blooms without any roots at all, it would be better if it grew some roots. So it needs a media suitable to generate a root system, but something down in the pot that's not going to stay too soggy. So, and also a suitable sized pot. So, I mean, I'd love to put it in a pot that sort of size. You know, I will. I don't want it in a big pot. It's got no roots. It'll just stay soggy. So we'll crop that. It's a little air cone pot. So we'll put some chunky stuff in. That makes sure there's air around the bottom. The bottom of a pot will always be the last bit to dry. So if your crocking is in that place, it won't stay wet. Simple as that. And a suitable media to generate some roots is going to be some bark. Let's have some there. You can always use some more in another pot. I doubt if I'll vary the mix much for these three, because they're all in a similar position. So that's some of the bark from Burnham's. That's going to have some cocoa husk in it to hold moisture. Bearing in mind, this is really my replacement for sphagnum moss. This is what I'm using instead. And the idea is that, you know, this stays moist quite a long time, but the bark dries quite quickly. The combination of the two should be okay to generate some roots. So I'm just breaking up some of the big bits. Some of those are breaking far too easily, and some of them don't. So I need a bit more. I need a reasonable smattering of this, or it won't do its job. You know, if the bark is dominant, the bark will suck the moisture out of the coconut husk, and then it won't stay moist. So it does actually need a fair proportion of this stuff in there, just to make sure that the bark can't drain it too quickly. Yep, that'll do. Yep, that seems about right. I'm judging it by the fact it's going in there soaking wet, and the first handful I mixed with the bark went dry almost immediately. Now it's staying wet, and what it's doing now is wetting the bark. So that's probably about the right mix. I'll muck off my hands. Now the need for some sponge rock in here probably doesn't exist. You know, that helps with aeration, helps with moisture retention, and doesn't break down, blah blah blah, but the moisture retention is the cocoa husk. The charcoal, however, my theory with this is, and I'm going to carry on doing it until it either goes wrong or somebody says why I shouldn't, is that this helps keep the media sweet by absorbing nasties. I've got no proof it even does it. But there's enough people around adding some charcoal in their mix without any complaints. And I always assume that silence is, like it says, golden. So if people aren't complaining about something, chances are it's because it's okay. People love to complain, but are more reluctant to bother singing something's praises. So I'm going along the lines that if nobody's howling about the problems with it, then it's probably okay. Right. I wonder if this is going to go quite low in the pot, with the hope it will actually hold itself up by touching the sides. Now if new growths come, they will come off of these two growths, so all I need to do is set this back really. So we'll make sure we've got some underneath. Gently. There's a few roots I've got I'd like to keep. We'll get some around the back of the plant. I can lean that against that, and then all the rest can just go down the front, down the sides. This is very easy in as much as there isn't enough roots to worry about breaking, if you know what I mean. There's just so few roots there. The nubbins haven't grown long enough to worry about yet. And I'm not pushing where they are anyway, I'm pushing down the side of the pot, and there's nothing down the side of the pot. We haven't got enough roots to get to the side of the pot. So, and then a little bit round the base of the plant, but not too high up the pseudobulbs, just a bit. And that'll help encourage those roots. And then if they do start to grow, they'll go straight down in the pot. And oh goody goody, that one's actually standing up on its own. Slightly wobbly, but not enough to worry about, because I'll just make sure I don't wobble it around when I water it. And it won't need watering that often. There's no roots. So what's going to use the water up then? And it won't get watered until it's heading towards, you know, I can start to see patches of dryness on that. And then it'll get a soak again, which will rehydrate the cocoa husk. That pot's probably going to stay moist quite a long time. Right, next we have 2 pieces. Do we have 2 or do we have 3? We have 3. 3 pieces. 3 pieces of the same plant. These roots are possibly okay, and they may not be. They're borderline soggy. On here, some of these are okay, but not many. But I left them on in some cases so that I've got something to pot. Otherwise the thing will never stand up. And again on here, some of these larger ones are quite firm, but they're not really firm. But they may branch out, so they're getting left. So I've got something to work with. Right, now here we have 2 new growths backed up by 2 plump pseudobulbs. So there's stored energy here to help grow these new growths, even without any roots. But there are no signs of new roots coming out of those new growths. So I'm hoping that they will come later. And in the meantime, that can grow on from its stored reserves. Same with this one. The new growth is right in the middle of the plant. So it's come out of either that bulb or that bulb or that bulb, but it's in the middle. Again, when that pushes out some roots, in fact there's a new root just starting, which tells me that's quite a mature growth compared with those 2. I know it's smaller, but its leaves are open. These are just unfurling, yeah? So those are not quite as advanced as this one, and this one's just starting its roots. So I now know there's roots to come. And then we've got this little piece, which under normal circumstances I would have just thrown away, but I thought, what the heck. And there is a sign of a root coming on that bit. Now somehow I've got to get those 3 bits in one pot. So I need a wide pot. But how big? Do I put it in that sort of big pot? Is that too big? With some heavy crocking, that wouldn't be a bad size. The next size down, that one, will definitely be, I suspect, too small, and the plant will be so crowded there won't be any room for any new growth at all. Actually, that's okay. I thought that was going to be too small. Nope, that's the one. Or the last choice, get that out of the way. The last choice would be one of the wide, flat-bottomed ones, which, as far as the width is concerned, it's actually wider than this one, but nowhere near as deep. So that might be a better bet. A bit of width will allow for growth. Now I'm going to go for the more narrow neck in this case, because it might help hold the plant up. So that's what we're going with. Big stuff in the bottom, nice big air cone on that one, yeah, or tall air cone. So we'll crock the air cone so that it doesn't get blocked up with smaller stuff. That will always allow air in then. Bit of crocking. Ridiculous, isn't it, to buy some really good quality bark and use it to chuck in the bottom of the pot. Right, same thing again, we haven't got a good root system. We need to generate a good root system. This is quite a large pot, it's going to need a fair bit. So I'll add a bit more bark in. And we'll add, whoops, treading on charcoal here. That's going to make a nice mess, isn't it? Remember to wipe my feet on the doormat before I walk in the lounge on the carpet, because I'm going to have squashed charcoal on the bottom of my shoe. That won't go down too well. Mind you, it's strange. I mean, I don't look after this house very well. It's not mine, and my mum is never going to come back here and live. So it's going to get sold, and whatever's in it, the people who buy the house are going to take it out. You know, they're not going to keep what's in here. They might do while they do their own thing for a while, but you know, they're not going to keep that carpet in the lounge, so it doesn't really matter if it gets a bit grubby, because I would imagine whoever comes in here next will rip everything out and start again to their own tastes and their own designs. I mean, the kitchen units are very, very serviceable. They're not modern, but they all work. You know, there's no door handles missing or anything like that. So you know, it's a functional kitchen, apart from the fact the oven don't work. And as I said, I would imagine that wouldn't be the highest priority. Whoever moves in here is replacing a kitchen that fundamentally works. They probably want to get a new cooker in straight away. And they'll certainly need to do the bathroom. A bathroom with no shower in this day and age is a right pain. Sometimes running a bath when you actually just want a quick splash is a bit of a pain. I have to sort of sit down in the bath to have a shower. Flipping nuisance. But again, you know, if I redo the bathroom, the people who come in will probably go, oh, don't like that, and replace it. So what's the point? That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. So this house will go as is, sold as seen. And obviously we won't get as much for it because of its condition, but that doesn't matter. It's not worth the effort, time and money trying to do it up when we don't know the tastes and requirements of the people that will buy it. So there's just no point. You just let them have it cheaper, and then the money they save on buying it because it's in a bit of a state, they put towards doing it up the way they want it. And to me that just makes sense. I mean, I've got a brother and two sisters. One of them had to be persuaded that that made sense. But then they don't see a lot of sense in much anyway. So. Right, so that's got a new growth in the middle. It's got a new growth on the edge. See, this has got two new growths and a gap round the back, like a recess. So I'm going to put that new growth in there. that sits that quite nicely. And then that one will come up in the middle. And then this one, which also has a new growth right in the middle of it, should just be able to sit against there like that. So that's how I want it, 3 pieces. I need to get them all at the same height now, so that none of them get buried. That'll do, that's about right. I think actually that one needs to come down a bit. That's about right. Cover up that. And again, I want to go quite deep in the pot so that the plant sits against the sides with any luck. It's going to be central this time because there's growths all round, so there's no need to worry about getting some down behind the plant and then pushing the plant back because it's going to sit in the middle. So the media is going to go all round it. Slightly different, you know, when you've got growths at one side of the plant, you need that as close to the middle as you can get it to leave room for those new growths to come. So my battery's just gone red, so I'll stop at that point and change the battery because it caught my eye, it flashed. So I'll do that and then I'll be back. It's the trouble, my big heavy duty battery for this camera is currently on charge. And the little backup batteries I've got don't actually do much filming before they run out. They're quite, you know, they're quite tiddlers compared with my big one. I mean, that big one, when it's fully charged, it goes on the camera, and the camera says you've got 310 minutes to go. So that's quite a long time, I believe. That was a good idea, wasn't it? It was one of those little fungus gnat things crawling on my hand, and I squashed it right into my sole bit. That bled for a nice long time. And do you know what that was? I did something and caught it with my nail. That's all it was. And my nail dug in and cut a slice out of my hand. Right, that's about it. It's reasonably firm, just about round the base. So I'm just moving it away from it's a little bit too high around those two new growths. The other new growths are in the middle of the pot, so they don't matter. But I don't like my pseudo bulbs sunk too low in the media. There we go. So that'll do, and that's not that wobbly at all. That'll do. No stakes so far. So far, so good. So far, so good, said the optimist as he fell from the 10th floor. Right, now this is the supposed Naeviem, and it does have a look about it. Lots of little pieces. Some with a few roots, some with not many at all, but they've all got a new growth on them, and the new growths are showing signs of roots starting. So it's just lots of that's not a bad little bit of roots there, but it hasn't come off the new growth. It's from the bulb behind. So that's the only piece with a decent root. I mean, you know. So again, we are recovering roots on a plant. Now I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to go for a wide flat one this time. I've got a lot of pieces to get in there, and we may have to go and get some stakes, but we're going to need a lot more media than I've got there at the moment. So we'll get our big stuff in. Huge air holes in these flat ones, but no air cone. But nonetheless, some crocking in the base, keep some air around the base. That stops it staying soggy, basically. It works. And then, effectively, if this truly is Naeviem, which I'm pretty sure that's what the label was attempting to say, it definitely looked like N-A-E-V, and there isn't a word that can follow those letters that relates to an odontoglossum. So I'm assuming that that is what we're dealing with here. And as a consequence, cooler grower, and unlike some of the other Oncidium types, is better not dried out. The odontoglossums came from areas higher up, basically, so they're cooler growers across, you know, almost across the board, and heading up towards the montane forest, so cooler, bit breezy, misty, foggy, you know, all that sort of thing, so high humidity, and as soon as you start heading up to those areas, everything just seems to stay wet. So I would imagine most of these don't like to go dry, whereas some Oncidium types, you can let them dry out totally, and as long as they don't stay like that for any length of time, they'll survive it, they'll put up with it, especially in periods where there's no growth going on. Seems to do them some good. Right, so fair bit of the cocoa husk in there. I'm actually going to put some more in. I want this wet, or wetter. So there's a fair old bit in there now to dry me. This is a nuisance because I daren't put my hand in the charcoal when it's covered in that stuff, because I'll get all this stuff in the charcoal and it's wet, which won't do it any good. But I'm certainly not putting a wet hand in the charcoal bag. And then when I've got charcoal all over my hands, I need to wash my hands again because they'll be filthy. Like a flipping coal mine. Right. There we go. I'll do that up again in a minute. So we're on the last leg now. I don't know how long this video is going to be. Far too long, I expect. But you can see I might be jabbering away, but I am constantly working and talking about what I'm doing. So it's not like there's huge big gaps with nothing going on. I'm doing something all the time. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is trying to get all these little pieces arranged in that pot and stand upright. Oh, what fun. Right, we need a good bit in here to start with. Right, I've only got one piece that's got a lot of roots on, but it's now a matter of arranging it in such a way that the new growths have got... See, this has got two new growths here. Well, they need to be pointing towards the side of the pot with room to grow, so not right up against the edge of the pot. I'll spread those roots out. There's somewhere to be. So, and I've got to try and hold all these as I do it. Now that's got one new growth, so we can just slot that next door with the new growth on the outside. That's got one new growth. So I don't mind if there's some new growths in the middle, but they can't all be in the middle. That one's got one new growth on the outside, so you can go there. You've got one new growth and next to no roots, so you can go there. And then you've got the new growth with hardly any roots. So that's the new growths arranged in a way that I quite like. They're all at the same depth, and at the moment they're all too deep. But what I'm going to do is get some media in and then lift the set of plants out so that the media will drop in underneath. And then I'll lift them up a bit and put some more in. It's just a little trick to... it helps bed them in as well, because you know that the media is now all over those roots, and then just grab the whole lot and lift it slightly. Then you can add some more. Making sure it gets in the middle bit, because we have got a middle bit this time. Right, that's that. Got a great big hole round here. If this lot stays upright, I will be very surprised. Oh, I've just seen a lovely hole down through the middle. Get some in there while I can see it before I squash it up again. Amazing. Once you start poking down the side of a pot, it's amazing how much more media goes in. You know, you think you've filled the pot up completely, and you start poking it down the sides, and suddenly you can put as much in again. Right. Well, I'm hoping that new growths, new roots are going to come from all of those new growths, which in hopefully not too long will fill that pot. Now, I don't know what to do about its lack of stability. What that needs is something round it like that. So like some raffia. But then the raffia's got to be tied against something or it won't do anything at all. So I'm going to get one of my bigger stakes out and see if I can get it to sit still. It could do with two really, one each side. I'll shut down and I'll come back when I've got the bits. Right, I've got a couple of quite large stakes. So the trouble is, see, I've got a shallow pot with large chunks in the bottom of it. So getting a stake to stay still, firm enough to hold stuff, is quite difficult. That one's in there, that one's okay. But if I can get, yeah, that's a bit big. Should have cut that properly really, shouldn't I? Never mind. So directly opposite, and see if that one will stick in there and stay as well. That other one went in nicely, I heard it crunch. That's good enough. It's only to loosely hold this. You know, it's not like it's rigid. The need for the rigidity just isn't there. But we do need an end to the raffia so that we can... really annoyed when this arrived because it showed it as a coil, and then it arrives as folded bits like this, which is not so easy to play with. You keep losing the end. one more. Scissors. Right, I'll show you this knot again. Keep on doing this. This is for when you've got a stake or something where you've got a loose end. Otherwise it doesn't work, because you have to be able to put the knot over the top before you pull it tight. Do a loop, so right hand does all the work, right hand over the left hand, that makes a loop. Hold that with your finger and thumb and do it again. So that's another loop made in exactly the same way, and the second one goes underneath the first one. And then when you pull that tight, it bites. See, there's like two knots there, and it bites and doesn't slide up and down the stake. Works well. Probably got a name, don't care. Don't want to know. I just use it and I like it. And then on this stake over this side, all I need to do is just basically tie. So don't even need to go around the stake really, but I will, just to stop it sliding down. And then we just tie a knot when we get the raffia where we want it, which is, needs to go a bit lower. That's pinching that little new growth there. I think that will do. It's, as I said, it's only to stop it wobbling when I water, and I would be careful anyway. So and then hopefully we will get the new growths. Otherwise, the new roots. Sorry, growths, roots. Do you know? I think nearly everybody on YouTube says that the wrong way round frequently. Especially if you're talking about growths and roots in the same video. Yeah. Right. So that's that one done. Not firm in the pot, and there's one piece there that's sticking up a bit, so I'm going to push it down. It's not like I'm going to break the roots, because there aren't any. So if all these new roots grow, we're going to have a pot full of new roots, new growths, and potentially, I've done it again then, and potentially each one of those new growths could bloom, which will be quite nice. So overall, that's a better plant than the one I've got, but the one I've got isn't 6 pieces. I think it's 2 actually, but so anyway, that's that, and that's all 3. That's all 4. That's all 4 done now. So that's our probably Odontoglossum naevium, and I've forgotten the names of the others, and I'm not going to go and get them. But that I think was the one with the very strange name, which sounds like it's a reclassified Prosthetia. Or possibly the other way round, it's a Prosthetia that's been classified as something that starts with Anna. I'll do pop-ups with the names. And then we've got that thing, I think I've got a name for that. And then we've got our large Cattleya, which eventually, not on this growth because it's already bloomed, so in wherever the next growth comes from, it's highly likely to bloom, and it's big and it's green. So that will be nice. So there we go, that's Geoff's plants that I've got at the moment dealt with. I'm back there first thing tomorrow morning, and unlike Sunday morning when I had to be there for 9 o'clock, I hardly saw a car on the road. Getting there for 9 o'clock on a Tuesday might not be quite as easy. Be in the middle of the flipping school run and people going to work and stuff, so I expect there'll be a bit more traffic around. I'll just have to allow more time, won't I? See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.